Welcome to the C-Suite Mentor, the place where you will learn the tools, strategies, and mindset to scale your business sustainably and build a lasting legacy. I'm your host, Theresa Cantley. As a fellow CEO, I understand what it takes to scale a business to 7 and multiple 8 figures. It's not necessarily what you might think. It requires a complete shift in how you think, strategize, and execute key actions in your business. My mission is to help CEOs step back into the driver's seat of their business by optimizing their operations, empowering their team, and staying in total alignment with their big vision. So, are you ready to exchange everything that hasn't worked for strategies that will? You're in the right place, so let's go. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the C-Suite Mentor podcast. Today, we are challenging something that people talk about a lot, and they have talked about a lot for decades. And that topic is work ethic. I had a conversation with a client of mine, a coaching client of mine, and we talked a lot about work ethic yesterday. I coach him in leadership, and when you talk about leadership, you talk about people's work ethic a lot. And I wanted to challenge the whole thing around what really is good work ethic anyway, and give you some things to think about that maybe you can focus on or talk about or look at differently other than someone's work ethic. So if we look at, and you hear, especially when you're interviewing people, what kind of work ethic do you consider that you have? Or what kind of work ethic do you think this new employee has? And let's just kind of break it down, first of all, with what is the definition of work ethic. So when you look in the dictionary, it simply is the principle that hard work is intrinsically virtuous or worthy of reward. It also goes on to say a set of values guiding behavior encompassing integrity, responsibility, yada, yada, yada. So it also says that it drives productivity, fosters employee satisfaction, enhances a company reputation. So when we solely look at this, all right, and we just look at work ethic, okay, we look at it and it's a subjective definition because what values mean to me are different than what values mean to somebody else, or what work ethic means to me is different than what it means to other people. So I look at it and I say, how can we judge work ethic when it is subjective? Because if we don't fully understand what's important to a person first, to a new employee, to somebody that we're interviewing, to somebody that we've hired, to somebody on our team, we can't necessarily judge their work ethic. I mean, yes, there is a definition that kind of blankets it. And whether you read HR books or you listen to HR podcasts, or I mean, the majority of the people that you talk to, there is a huge focus on work ethic. And I know I am guilty, or I have talked about work ethic and said we want to hire people who have a really good work ethic. Well, again, what exactly does that mean? Especially when companies sit there and talk about core values and say our core values are XYZ, but if you talk to employees, they have no idea what those core values are. And if they do, they don't fully understand what they mean, and they don't see them present within an organization. So if you're talking about, because values and work ethic go hand in hand, I don't care what anybody says. I believe they go hand in hand. So if an employee isn't clear on what the company's values are, and the company isn't clear on what values are important to the employee, there's going to be some friction there. All right. And again, how can we evaluate somebody's work ethic if we don't fully understand what is important to them, what values are important to them? So, number one, as we start to look at this, or I'm challenging you to think about this, a little differently in your business as a leader, as a business owner, is number one, how can we judge it when it's subjective? Because it's different to each person, number one. Number two, if we don't fully understand what their values are and they don't fully understand what the business's values are, and if those core values don't fully show up in the way that a business does business, a way that the operations run, a way that the team is guided, again, how can you define work ethic if there is a lot of either confusion or ambiguity as far as what exactly that means? So that's one thing I want to challenge you to think a little differently. And I am going to give you, let's see here, four things that I want you to think about instead of saying, we want someone who has a good work ethic. That's so nebulous. A good work ethic. What does that mean? Okay. So I'm going to give you four things to think about instead that could potentially give you a new definition of what really is work ethic to you. Because from one business owner to another, it's going to be different. From one person to another, it's going to be different. So I want to challenge you so that the next time you say to yourself or you say to your team, we want somebody who has a good work ethic, you could define it a little bit better as far as what that means. So the other thing is when we solely focus on that, it tends to be centered when we look at work ethic, it tends to be centered around effort and productivity. And if you've listened to me on the podcast, or if you've watched any of my videos, whether on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Instagram, you've seen me talk about, and this is going to be in my upcoming book, is that there is a broken methodology as far as determining someone's worth. And your worth is based on your work ethic many times. So, an employee's worth is based on their effort, their individual effort, and how much effort they're willing to put into it, plus the amount of hours they work, which plus, I mean, this is an unspoken thing, but what are they willing to sacrifice that then leads to the business's success and potentially leads to a promotion or a raise. So that piques an employee's interest. It doesn't keep them engaged necessarily. And I talk about this a lot because I think that's a broken way to look at work ethic or to look at worth. So, when we look at the definition, the traditional definition of work ethic, it does center heavily around effort and productivity. Now, again, I just gave you what the definition of or how employers look at the worth of an employee to determine bonuses, raises, whatever they have to promote how many hours someone has worked, the amount of effort that they've put in, and again, many times over, and it's an unspoken thing, what they've sacrificed to get work done. All right. So when we look at this, and since it's centered around effort and productivity, because a lot of people think, oh, that person has a great work ethic. They're super productive. They can get so many projects done. And the truth is, they don't really know many times over. And I've discovered this myself as a leader of businesses, but also as someone who coaches, is that those people who are super productive are also, they have a tendency to burn out. Because if we don't have healthy behaviors to support that productivity, we set healthy routines. We set healthy behaviors around work, the harmony between work and life, out personal time and work time, then that high level of productivity ends up leading to burnout or ends up leading to frustration or ends up leading to unfulfillment for employees. So the fact that when we look at, or when employers look at work ethic and it's based on productivity and the amount of effort an employee is putting into something, it does tend to lead to unhealthy work habits. A conversation I had yesterday with someone, the unhealthy work habit was, well, if you take time off, if you're sick, if you take vacation, you're not productive. That's not helping the business, and you don't have a good work ethic. And I almost fell off my chair when I heard that statement. I was like, whoa. So when people say, I have a great work ethic, we also need to dig a little bit deeper at their routines, their goals, the way they structure their day to say, is this promoting an unhealthy habit or is this promoting a healthy habit? Many times over, when people think they have a strong work ethic, and again, it's based on how much can I get done in a day? How many projects can I take on? How much do I say yes to and be that person that raises their hand all the time and say, I want to do that project. I want to do this project. I want to focus on this. I want to, you know, what that leads to is a lack of priority, or what it can lead to is a lack of priority of one's health versus the work that they're willing to do. So that conversation that I had with this person, and it was a leader in a business who needed some course correction as far as how they looked at um, healthy habits in business and unhealthy habits in business. And obviously, by that statement, they have some unhealthy habits. But looking at it and saying, how are we going to create harmony in our organization? And not having people be afraid to take time off, to have that space and grace to, you know, have some downtime to reflect and relax and rejuvenate. I have worked with bosses myself, but also bosses or leaders that I've coached that have been uber control masters. And those people just want to drive results constantly. And they want to focus on that growth constantly. And what happens is they look at, I don't take a sick day ever as a badge of honor. And they think that that creates a really good work ethic. And if we look at it, that creates a very unhealthy habit. So, and I'm not saying that work ethic is bad. I just think we need to look at it differently. We need to look at it differently as business owners and as leaders and say, what do we need to focus on first so that we get a clear understanding of what someone's individual work ethic is, instead of just lumping it together and saying that everybody has the same work ethic and everybody should have the same work ethic and everybody's work ethic should be defined with the same values. I just don't think that that is an equal thing, and I think that's something that we need to change, because my formula for looking at employee self-worth has to do with, let's look at the person first. Let's look at the person first and say, what are the things that are important to them, and pulling out their greatness. And then we align that, and understanding what their strengths are, we align that with what the business really needs. So we have aligned work, aligned effort, which then can lead to business success and also individual success, because everybody's working in their strengths and the business has a clear understanding of what's important to them. So the first thing that we want to do is, number one, instead of just, like I said, having this blanket description, this blanket definition of what work ethic is, let's understand what it is for each person, starting with number one, connection. And that connection starts with understanding what does each individual person, what is important to them? What values are important to them? What values do they believe they bring to the table? And you might have similarities. I mean, that's very, very possible. If you have if you have the right people on the team that will align with what the business wants to do and what the business stands for, yeah, there's going to be a lot of similarities. But we need to understand what's important to each individual first. So if you ask your team, and this starts to build connection. And how does it build connection? It builds connection because you're showing people that you care. You're hearing what's important to them, and you're also showing them that you care and you want to understand, and you want to make sure that that aligns with the values that the business has. So if you have someone who values, let's say you are a business who is clearly has a clear this is the difference that we want to make in the world. And you have someone that doesn't care about that. They care more about making money, obviously not going to be in alignment, right? So someone like that, and I've seen this happen many, many times over, they are super productive. They will take on every single opportunity. They're super productive. They are driving results for the business, but they are very difficult to get along with. And they're solely focused on themselves and not the benefit of the group. And people hold on to those people long, like way long after they should. Why? Because they're driving results, they're productive, and they believe, because they're going with the old definition of what work ethic means, that they have a very good work ethic. But what it's doing is it's actually adding a level of negativity and toxicity back into the culture because they're not a good they're not a good team member. They don't have aligned values with what the business really cares about. And again, that friction starts to build over time, and it's kind of like this quiet toxicity. It's not this very, blatant, but it starts to creep in like over time, and it's hard to then pull away from. Again, because the person is doing great, they have great results, they're pushing results, they might be a really amazing salesperson as an example, but they just create a rift. They create a divide in a culture instead of bringing it together. So the first one is really understanding, having that connection, number one, and really understanding what each person values. Going along with that, number two is the alignment piece. So when we understand what they value, what's important to them, we can start to uncover really where their strengths are, as well as we can also uncover where they might have some weaknesses, and do we have them in the wrong role? So we might think this person does not have a great work ethic because they're not super productive. But when we take time to understand where their strengths are and maybe where they have some more challenges, they might be in a role where they're not working in their strengths. Therefore, they're not working to their fullest potential of that greatness that they have within themselves. And therefore, yeah, they're not going to be productive because they're either doing work that they don't like or that they're not good at. And how is that going to make somebody feel fulfilled? And at the same time, many leaders will look at that and say that person doesn't have a great work ethic. Maybe they don't get a bonus, or maybe they don't get a raise. And again, it's a broken way of thinking. So if we can get super clear and make sure that we understand, again, we're showing that we care, we can understand where their strengths are, we can also understand where their challenges are, or maybe where they're not so good at things. So either we can then help to build their skills, or we can put them into a role that's more aligned with who they are. And that's what all of this is about. It's really understanding who someone is first. Because again, you could go by somebody is super productive, they have a great work ethic. But when they show up every day, they might be negative, they might be territorial, they might be, they're not a team player, they like to function on their own, and they might be greedy. We don't know. So these four things that I'm giving you, starting with connection and understanding what's important to them, their values, and then alignment, which is understanding where their strengths are, This is what's going to help us really understand who that person is first. So if we understand who they are, we understand how they're going to show up in their role, that can start to help us to understand their greatness and understand what their own definition of success and work ethic really is. So the third thing is what I just said is how do they show up? This is intention. So we have connection, we have alignment, we have intention. How are they showing up? You might have, and I've seen this, I actually just saw it this week. You might have an employee who you haven't spent time with, and you've seen that they're showing up, they're not engaging, they seem frustrated, maybe they're missing stuff. When we spend time understanding who they are, what's important to them, where their strengths are, when we spend time doing that, we might realize that that person isn't showing up right because they're frustrated about something that we never even knew about. They might have an idea about something. There might be friction with somebody else that we don't know about. So we categorize or we put a label on somebody when we don't have the full picture behind really who this person is. And once we get that, once we understand what that is, we can help them to show up as their best self. One of the primary things that a leader does is inspires other people by helping them to summon the best of who they are. Inspiring people by holding that space for them to summon the best of who they are with consistency and with frequency. That is the sole purpose of leadership. Then it goes into managing cash, driving the vision, all of those things. But at the top, it's inspiring people by holding a space for them to summon the best of who they are, summon that inner greatness that they have with consistency and higher frequency. I help to run one of my clients' businesses that is a restaurant. And for the first time in many, many years, after letting go of a very toxic leader, the back of the house in his restaurant has never been better. Never been better. These people are showing up differently. These people, we've taken the time to understand what's important to them, and then we can align certain things, processes in the business, how we're doing things, team members that are in that particular department. We can align everyone better to what the business needs, but then what each one of those team members need. And we've never been able to do that before. But it's only because we kept seeing people were missing work. They were calling out. When they were there, they were crabby. There was a lot of friction between the front of the house and the back of the house. Um, and when we started to uncover a lot of this stuff and started to kind of rebuild it, people started to show up differently. So we had the right intention. Everybody has the right intention. So the last piece with this framework is promoting harmony. And this is how we start to elevate everyone in the culture. This is how we bring elevation into the culture. So, promoting harmony is how we get rid of those unhealthy habits. And we say, we care about what you do here because obviously, if you're doing it well, the business is going to succeed. If the business succeeds, you'll succeed. But we also care about that harmony outside of work and letting people know that, you know, life happens. People, as I heard earlier today, people. And we have to be able to roll with it. And as business owners, as leaders, we also want people to understand that we support you. And when life's challenges happen, we will cover, we'll do what we can to help you, so that you can take care of what you need to take care of so that you can come back and do what you need to do with that greatness that we know you have. And also letting people know that it's okay to take vacation. It's okay to take time off. There will be times when, yeah, there's busy seasons where you're going to be working over the normal amount of time that you work. But then there's going to be times when there's going to be some more downtime. So you'll have some more downtime that you'll get. So, but that's how we start to elevate. When people see that we care, they know, they understand what we need and we understand what they need. They put in higher levels of engagement, which elevates the culture of the business, which elevates the team, which elevates your results. The results for increased sales, more customers through your door, increased profitability all comes from really understanding who your people are, what's important to them. They understand what's important to the business. And then you can weave that into absolutely everything, everything that you do. So the way that we look at this is four things. Number one is connection. What do they value? Number two, what are their core values? What are the core values of the business? And making sure that the two meet. Number two is that alignment. Where are their strengths? Are they functioning in their strengths? Or do we have them in the wrong role? If we have them in the wrong role, we can adjust that. Are they the right person for the job? Are they the right person for the business? If they're not, then we have other decisions to make. Number three is the intention. Are they showing up as their best self? I think how someone shows up, that's not something that we can teach, but when someone shows up with that great attitude every day, we can always coach those hard skills. So, how are they showing up every day? Do they have intention behind what they're doing? And then the last piece is that elevation piece and making sure that we are promoting healthy habits. We are promoting life harmony between what happens on the inside of our business and what happens on the outside of our business. And when we do all of these things, we can get a better understanding of not just the work ethic of each individual person, but what matters to them. What matters to them and how can they co-create the vision that we have for our business? How can they be a part of seeing the success of the business instead of just telling them things, instead of just solely just focusing on this person is really productive. They get tons of, they're a workhorse. I hear that a lot. They're a workhorse. But when you talk to the employee, more often than not, they do have a level of stress. They do have a level of frustration. Some of that is self inflicted. Some of that is they feel like they need to produce at a high level to keep up that thing that they have a really great work ethic. And I can say that because that was me. And that's why at one point in time, I sat at my desk frustrated and burned out and said, is my tombstone going to read, she had a great work ethic and she was a really hard worker, but she had nothing else in life. And now more than ever, people need to have that connection, not just inside the business, but outside of the business. They need to have those outlets. They need to have that time to rejuvenate their brain, rejuvenate their thinking so that they can do better work, so that they can help you co create anything that you're looking to create in your business. So I hope that after this episode, like I said, work ethic isn't necessarily bad. I just think we need to look at it differently. I think we need to redefine what it means and make sure that we're looking at it from an individual perspective and not just this collective blanketed thing with some nebulous definitions. Because again, we're each individuals. Each business is different. Each person is different. Each definition of what success means and what work ethic means is going to be different. It's up to us to pull that out and to understand what it is so that we can lead better, so that we can build a better business. Because if we fix what's inside, we can fix what's outside in society, in our communities. All right. Have a great rest of your week. If you're looking for more, if you're looking to dig deeper on this, if you're looking for more on how to build, how to redefine things in your business, how to build a stronger culture, a healthier culture, and how to really level up your own leadership ability, let's have a conversation. Let's have a virtual coffee. If you go to teresacantley.com/business audit, or even teresacantley.com/virtual coffee, I found out that that link is still there. Come have a virtual coffee with me. Let's chat. Let's get some action items for you, and let's get you moving forward. But until next week, have a great rest of your week.
Hey there. Thank you so much for listening. If you found value on this show, please follow the podcast so you never, ever miss an episode. And I would love, love, love if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for me. Even better, share the show with a fellow business owner ready to step fully into their CEO leadership role. Because right now, more than ever, the world really needs next level leaders. And by the way, did you know you can text me all your questions and get real-time feedback? You absolutely can. Just text the word CEO to me at 610-215-2838 to get connected. One last goodie for you before I go. If you're ready to scale your business and have a co-creator working right by your side, my C-Suite Mentor Program may be perfect for you and your possible new second in command. Just visit thecsuitementor.com to get started.